Good evening, everyone. Sorry, my mic was muted. My name is Mike Gelin, District 2 Commissioner in the city of Tamarac, Florida. Welcome to Conversation with the Commissioner, where each month we try to bring to you issues or discussions that relate to items that impact you. And traffic is a major issue that impacts residents throughout the city of Tamarac. So today, I'm going to talk about the Vision Network program, Vision Zero Network program. And the goal is simply to ensure that there are zero traffic fatalities and serious injuries due to traffic. This idea was not my original idea. It was brought to me by a very engaged resident by the name of Doris Span. So today I'd like to introduce you all to a very good and engaged Tamarac resident, Doris Span. Welcome, Doris.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, and it's good to see you here. I also want to introduce a experienced traffic consultant and engineer who spent time with the Florida Department of Transportation. Please welcome Billy Hadaway.
Good evening, Commissioner, and everyone else. Good to be here this evening.
All right, good to see you here as well. And finally, I would like to introduce a senior mobility planner from Broward County, and her name is Josette Severin. Welcome, Josette.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here. So just want to give the audience a little background about who you are. So Billy, if you can give us a 1 minute on your bio. You're on mute right now.
Sure. I spent 3 tours at Florida Department of Transportation. The last one, I was the secretary for Southwest Florida District, and I led the safety initiative and the Complete Streets Initiative at Florida Department of Transportation that's led to a significant shift in the way from the DOT is pursuing issues related to traffic and the transportation director of the city of Florida for 4 years before going back to consultant in the last 6 months. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Thank you so much. And Josette, tell us what AICP means and also your background.
All right. So an AICP is an American Institute of Certified Planners. It's a certification for professional planners.
Okay.
A little bit about me. So I'm currently at Broward County as a senior mobility planner for the Mobility Advancement Program, which is the Transportation Surtax program. But previously, I was at the city of Fort Lauderdale as their Vision Zero coordinator. And I was lucky enough to be the first Vision Zero coordinator brought on in the entire southeastern United States. And at that time, city of Fort Lauderdale was a Vision Zero focused city. So I had the pleasure of working with the Vision Zero network and some of the other early adopters of Vision Zero. And it provided for a lot of learning experiences, learning a little bit about what Vision Zero is, and we all worked together towards further developing what the United States' Vision Zero really looks like. So that was a great opportunity. Previous to that, I've worked in several other positions, but I'd like to make mention that one of my first positions was really in research, and that component really looked at nutrition and physical activity. Mm-hmm. And this is really what brought me to planning, was that you have the ability to influence the urban fabric of a city, and you have the ability to influence people's health and their physical activity, their accessibility to destinations. And that's kind of where Vision Zero has segued for me, is really getting people safely to the destinations that not only that they need to get to, but that they want to get to spend time with friends and family, but also to have, a high quality of life and really enjoy the opportunities that they have in front of them.
Okay, great points. I'm going to follow up on some of that when we come back. But for now, let's introduce or allow Doris to introduce yourself and really talk about why traffic safety is so passionate to you, how you found out about Vision Zero, and what it means to you. Doris?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm here. I am the founder of Don't Forget Willie Foundation, which is a pedestrian safety organization. And it's in honor of my husband, who was killed in a roadway crash, trying to cross Commercial Boulevard, which is one of the deadliest roads in Broward County. 70-year-old Army veteran, somewhat mobility impaired, and African American. So I learned over the course of the years and in my exposure to Vision Zero, Safe Street Summit, that he is a statistic as far as planning and roadways are concerned, more likely to be killed in a roadway crash because of being a senior, because of being mobility impaired and African American, working class. So the foundation really honors him, giving exposure to Vision Zero, what it is all about, and just trying to make roadways safer for not just motorists, but also for pedestrians. And if I may, I just read a very interesting article about in the early 20th century, the roadways were shared more comfortably between motorists and pedestrians sort of ruled, and people looked out for them more. And there was a shift in the early 20th century to pretty much, you could almost say, shame folks who are going by foot and who may come into an encounter with cars. So we want to, and I see Vision Zero as a way to shift that paradigm to be friendlier to folks who are on foot, because we all are at some point.
That's a great point. And Doris, thank you for, keeping the passion about your husband alive through the foundation, for staying engaged, and for bringing the idea of Vision Zero to the city of Tamarac, which, as you know, I introduced to the commission and it passed unanimously. So I'm glad to have Josette and Billy here, and for you to be here as well. You talked about Commercial Boulevard being one of the highest fatalities here in Broward County. But just so we can educate the audience on what Vision Zero is, I'm going to ask Josette to share her presentation, and then we can get into the questions afterwards, because I know you have some, I have some, and we may have some audience members that have some.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Josette Severin, formerly the Vision Zero coordinator for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit more about Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is a global movement that started in Sweden, and it was first adopted in 2 American cities in 2015. So New York City was the first city to adopt Vision Zero, followed by San Francisco. And Vision Zero is much larger than just a safety goal to eliminate all deadly and serious injury traffic crashes. It really represents a shift in thinking and the approach to transportation planning and traffic operations. So when we talk about traffic crashes, traffic crashes are not accidents. They're preventable, and so it'll be a little bit of a shift in how we talk about crashes and such. So the first step is to reframe the way you think. It's not a traffic accident, it's a traffic crash. So crashes are preventable, and accidents assert that there's no ability to do any prevention measures. So the approach really integrates the human failings into the approach of traffic engineering. So what this means is when you design a roadway, you are doing more than just moving cars. You're looking at all the design components, and in that, you want to be able to make sure that you are accounting for mistakes that can be made while driving. And the goal of those mistakes is that those mistakes are not deadly. So that's what we mean by integrate human failing and approach, because we're not always going to be in a perfect condition where we can always know exactly what human behavior is going to be. And so the next one is prevent fatal and severe crashes. So the idea is that we are going to prevent the most serious of crashes. And in doing so, we will be able to have an integrated approach and a more holistic safe system approach to transportation. And then finally, saving lives is not expensive. When you look at the whole grand scheme of things, saving lives is not expensive. So essentially what it comes down to is Vision Zero is a global movement. It aims to eliminate all deadly and serious injury traffic crashes. It's a holistic, safe system approach, and it's more than just a program. It's an ongoing, it's a cultural shift in thinking, and not only from the engineer or the planner's perspective, but it's also the users. So when we look further into Vision Zero, and Doris mentioned this, there is a huge component of equity. And so Vision Zero ensures that communities of concern, the vulnerable populations, the people walking, the people biking, using transit, the seniors, unhoused folks, people with disabilities, they are especially supposed to be part of this dialogue. And addressing safety for those most vulnerable users is one of the key components of Vision Zero. So who has adopted Vision Zero? So back in 2016, we can see that there's Fort Lauderdale, we have New York City, we have some other triangle spots. Those are areas that are thinking about adopting Vision Zero. And we've really seen adoption not only in the United States, but across North America. And so now when we move forward into 2020, you can see that there has been more and more cities, not only in Florida, but nationally, that have adopted Vision Zero. And so just put in a plug here, through the Florida Pedestrian Bicycle Safety Coalition, we have been able to get some of these folks in Florida that have adopted Vision Zero to start talking a little bit and having an approach collectively. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, and Billy can expand upon that later. I want you to keep in mind that Vision Zero is an ongoing commitment. If you take a look at Fort Lauderdale, there was a number of policies and programs that they put in place before even coming to Vision Zero. And complete streets will certainly be a big component of your Vision Zero program. And so there's a lot of key steps that you will need to take to have a successful Vision Zero program. And this timeline will continue on. So some of the key components for a successful program is having strong leadership and commitment. So this is a public, high-level, ongoing commitment that has authentic engagement, strategic engagement, and really ensures the project delivery. So what this means is, some of the strategies you might employ would be like develop a task force. What does engagement look like within that task force? Who should be involved? What do you need to be successful? What might be limitations that you might face? You need to set priorities and consider funding and budget needs. And so for an example that City of Fort Lauderdale had, they had a Vision Zero workshop that was on May 19th, 2016, and they had a multidisciplinary group come in, and they developed several of these images that you see in front of you. But this is just one example. And what you see is, zero fatalities is the goal. These are not crashes, or these are crashes, not accidents. Different strategies, 5 E's, evaluation, enforcement. These are different things that they found to be important to their own Vision Zero program. And you'll likely go through that same process as well. Another key component is the safe system approach. And what that means is there are different strategies: safe speeds, safe roadways, safe roadway users, and safe vehicles. And I'll go through each of these. But at the center of this, it's all about the human tolerance to absorb that physical force. And what is that capacity that we have as human beings? So when we look at safe roadways and safe speeds, Complete Streets for All is going to be a foundational element of that. So Complete Streets for All is not just about putting any bike facility, any sidewalk, or any crosswalk on the roadway system. It's about putting the most appropriate treatment, a safe design, and it has to be perceived as safe and evaluated as safe. And people need to feel comfortable regardless of their age, ability, or skill set. And you need to think about context appropriate speeds. That's, when you're looking at the different land uses that you have surrounding your roadways. Are you in a more commercial district? Are you in a more residential district? What does that approach look like for those different needs that you have, those different land uses that you're serving? So what you'll want to do is prioritize a safe system approach, focus on speed management. This will look like safe speeds. And you'll want to have an approach to look at patterns between speed, roadway, and the context of the roadway and the land uses that are in there. So when you get to the safe roadway users and safe vehicles, this is going to be more so education and vehicle design. So an example of a safe vehicle is the City of Fort Lauderdale bulk fleet vehicle. They have these truck side guards that you'll see right here. And what that truck side guard would do is protect pedestrians and bicyclists from right turning vehicles. It could protect motorcyclists and cars as well. And it also helps with side impacts. So not only turning vehicles, but side impact crashes that you might see. And so that's one of the examples of safety elements. Another safety element for safe vehicles, if you've seen that new US Postal Service truck that kind of looks like a duck, that one's actually designed to have a lower hood. So when the impact when it impacts a person, the risk is minimized a bit more just because of that point of impact. Another example for education, the City of Fort Lauderdale did a bus bench campaign. This was basically an example of leveraging existing opportunities to have education or PSA delivered to the community. And you can see here that they added in pay attention, traffic related death is too many. So it's being able to communicate what Vision Zero is. So this education might look like developing a marketing and dissemination plan for education, using impactful education strategies, really just educating on what Vision Zero is internally to your city, city staff, and externally to your public and your residents. Other things that you might do is develop an education toolkit, a press toolkit, trainings internally. And when you come down to doing a little bit more of a robust education program, you might start thinking about yard signs or bus bench advertisements, on-bus advertisements, neighborhood association meetings, different outreach like that. And then when you look at your safe vehicle approach, you might look at fleet management policies or fleet management implementations within the city. For example, truck side guards or even using a in-vehicle GPS to monitor safe speeds of your own employees that are moving around the city. Another key component that we have is really Vision Zero's focused on a data-driven approach. There's a lot of transparency and accountability that goes with Vision Zero. So some of this might look like equity-focused analysis programs, proactive system planning, responsive hotspot planning, and really just doing a comprehensive evaluation, making adjustments where you need to. So with this, I should say, data should not solely come from crash data. There's a lot of crashes that happen that are not reported. And crash data doesn't tell the whole story always. So supplementing data with demographic data, community outreach, that's going to give you a better picture of where some of your issues are and areas of improvement that you'll have. But in general, what you want to do is develop your high injury network. And Billy will go into some examples in the Orlando communities. So when you're doing a data-driven approach, you might ask, where are the crash hotspots? What are the contributing factors? Are areas lacking safe pedestrian, bicycle, and transit infrastructure? Or are there certain demographics disproportionately burdened? And then when you get into transparency, really holding an ongoing dialogue about Vision Zero with residents, maintaining a website and communicate your successes will be really big. And a component of that will be developing an action plan and reporting out on what you've been able to accomplish with that action plan. And finally, accountability. Who's responsible for what? Which agency partners are contributing to which strategies for successes? And really being transparent with what that accountability is. So you'll have a lot of partners that you work with, and that's inevitable. You'll have to work with FDOT, you'll have to work with the county, and collectively, the approach to Vision Zero will have to be collaborative. And you'll want to meet routinely with your Vision Zero task force to solicit input, review data, and provide ongoing feedback on progress and challenges. And that Vision Zero task force could be folks from FDOT as part of it, from the county, from your neighboring cities, but it also could be your local hospitals, your advocacy groups, and you can develop that as you go. It should be developed in accordance with the needs of your community specifically. So now that I've given you a little bit of a background on Vision Zero, now you'll hear from Billy Hadaway and about Vision Zero at the City of Orlando.
Thank you, Josette. Prior to my move to the City of Orlando, the Secretary of DOT had asked me to come back and lead not just the district but a statewide safety initiative as a result of the Dangerous by Design report in 2011. And both Josette and I are involved in the Vision Zero emphasis area that's part of DOT's safety initiative. But we should mention earlier, complete streets is an important element to this. And so after we had gotten the safety initiative launched, I looked at the Secretary and said, we can't keep designing our streets the way we've been designing them for the last 50 years and expect different results. So we implemented a complete streets policy. And just to give you a brief example, our minimum design speed was 45 miles an hour. Well, when a pedestrian gets hit at that speed, they have a 90% chance of being killed, compared with a 20 miles an hour, it's only a 10% chance of being killed. And even at 30, which is the speed in most residential neighborhoods, the fatality rate goes to 50%. So complete streets, as you mentioned, is an important element of this. And I lived in the City of Orlando at the time. I had the opportunity to become the transportation director with the city. And after I'd been there about a year, I realized that we had a lot of legitimate safety problems, but most of the concerns about safety were coming from neighborhoods where there was a lot of money, and very few concerns were coming from the communities that concerned them. So I was attracted to the Vision Zero network because of their focus on equity. And so we put together a task force, adopted the policy of the City of Orlando, joined the Vision Zero network. And you can see here that our goal is that the city was to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2030. And there is work involved. Next. So a big element of Vision Zero is to establish trust and accountability, and that means being very transparent in the way that you deal with both the corridors along the high-injury network, but also what you're doing to reduce crashes and to have data that shows the progress that you're making, because the cities that have taken this seriously have seen double-digit reductions in fatalities and serious injuries. And in the countries that started this, like Sweden, they dramatically reduced fatalities and serious injuries, and they were a very car-centric country before they adopted Vision Zero. Next slide. So we have a task force, as Josette mentioned, it's very holistic. So we have Florida Highway Patrol, we have the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, we have our trauma hospital center come in, along with a number of other folks, including DOT. And that group worked with us at 2 task force meetings to come up with the goals that we wanted to implement with the city. And we learned a lot from this effort. A good example was that we realized that we needed to work with the Trauma 1 Center, another one Trauma Center, to improve their access and travel time, because how long it takes an ambulance to get to that another Trauma Center can mean the difference between life and death. Next slide. We had 6 commissioner districts. I told our consultant I want our high-entry network to be established in each of the commissioner districts. I want 3 segments of corridors identified as a high-entry network, so that each of the commissioner districts is getting equal attention in terms of concerns related to fatalities and serious injuries. So we went out to the community and had public meetings. We got great input from them. And it was extremely helpful in informing the direction that we did as a result of our efforts. Next slide. One of the things that might be helpful to do, we found out in our first meeting that rather than hearing about what the specific issues were in their community, they were telling us a lot of stuff that we already knew, because we live in this world every day. So the next presentation that we did to the public, I put this slide in at the front so that the people that were there would focus on the specific issues in their community. You know, what streets do you have concerns with as far as getting across or traveling along? Don't tell us about the things that we already know in terms of that pedestrians don't use cross or else bicyclists that they go on. Those things don't help us to deal with the specific issues in the community. And that really made a huge difference in the input that we got. Next slide. You can see here that based on the crashes that we have, what percentage of those ended up in injuries. And of course, with automobiles, we have a lot of protection. We have seat belts and airbags and all kinds of other things that protect us. We have bodies that collapse to absorb more of the energy. Pedestrians and bicyclists and motorcyclists don't have any of those benefits. And so you can see when you have a crash with a pedestrian, the chances for injury are much higher than the so when we looked at our city, this was just for a 3-year time frame. We had 66 fatalities and 2,700 fatal and serious injury crashes, and you can't look at that data because they kind of overlap. So I just put this in here for everyone. It's used to see what each commission districts crash rates and pedestrians and bicycle crashes for each of those districts, and we always found our high-entry network establishment. Next slide. And I think it's important to understand how difficult a person's life can be if they experience a serious injury. This is the Federal Highways definition of serious injury. So if you have 2,700 or 2,600 people with serious injuries, these are folks that have typically experienced lifelong impacts to their quality of life, and so it's equally as important as the fatalities. Next slide. So when we looked at our 6 commissioner districts, and this is just a couple, you can see in District 1, which is we have 3 segments, fairly short segments of roadways, and those 3 segments of roadways account for 47% of the fatalities and serious injuries in their district. And then into the next district, District 2. At the worst case. Next slide. In District 2, 79% of the fatalities and serious injuries occur on the 3 short segments of roadway, 2 of them on the same roadway. So this is evidence that when you focus on your high injury network, you can see double-digit reductions in fatalities and serious injuries, and we expect those kind of benefits with the city of Orlando as they further implementation. Next slide. I think that is the last slide. So with that, Commissioner, we can turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. The Vision Zero program seems to be extremely comprehensive with community feedback, holistic planning, and making sure that all parties, all relevant parties are interested. So the reason why this is relevant to the city of Tamarac, obviously, Doris Span, I'm sure you can relate to the statement that one life lost is too many. You experienced that personally. Earlier, I heard from members of staff today that a city like Tamarac doesn't really need a program like this. How would you respond to that, Billy? Or we'll start with Josette, then Billy, in terms of a city of our size using a program like this.
I think a city like Tamarac can certainly benefit from this. And I'll be frank, I think that the Vision Zero approach should be an approach that all the cities in Florida should take. It doesn't matter how big or small your city is, there are strategies that you can put in place that will improve conditions and safety on your roadways for all users. One of the things that I will say that I find most concerning is when there's a rise in vehicular deadly crashes or serious injuries. And mostly that's because when you're driving in a vehicle, you have all of these advanced safety features that are protecting you. And there's really no reason for anybody who's driving a vehicle to really die or get seriously injured in a crash. And that really comes down to speed, because speed is the one thing that will certainly impact severity.
So in the city of Tamarac, and related cities, there's been some development in and around Commercial Boulevard. So the city of Lauderhill, there used to be a target on Commercial Boulevard and University Drive. There's a proposal by some developers to the city of Lauderhill to develop a mixed use development there with apartments and homes. So there could be a traffic impact there. There's another area in Tamarac where there's a proposal to develop 400 homes. What is the potential traffic impact when such a development is coming to a city? And I think that's why residents have a lot of problem, but what's the potential traffic impact in terms of increased fatalities, especially as it relates to Commercial Boulevard, where there's so much traffic at a high rate of speed? Billy, can you help us with that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So you're talking about two different conditions. So one of the things that the state that I brought to the state is the integration of land use and transportation. So the goal of putting mixed use development is to create development that is allowed by law. Most of the time it's allowed by law. So there's an example, the DOT doesn't have a means to stop development because the property owner has a right to develop it based on the land development regulations. The challenge is that the benefit of mixed use development is, yes, you're adding more potential trips to these corridors, but also with mixed use development, you're developing a project that should capture some of the trip making. So if it's developed properly so that you have services and retail and restaurants and other amenities, that people are less likely to get in their cars to get some of their needs met. Every project that's developed is going to have an impact on the state road system. And I've dealt with that in the Central Florida District. I've dealt with it in the South Florida District. And so there is not much of mechanisms to stop developments from happening. So congestion is going to continue. I mean, all of the interstate widening projects that I was involved in Central Florida back in the 90s would be the local trip making, not be the interstate trips. Same thing with Southwest Florida. All the interchange and interstate widening that we did in District 1 when I was there was due to local trip making. So land development patterns have a huge impact on transportation safety. And so the trade-off is going to be that if we have more trips, there's more potential for conflicting movements, which is what causes the crashes. But speed, this idea that we should be able to get in the car and travel quickly where we want to go is a notion that really doesn't work very well. And I'll give you a very brief example. I lived in the city.
One second, sure. Billy, can you adjust your microphone? We're getting comments or feedback that they can't hear you that well.
Okay, and I'll turn my volume up as well. I'll give you one brief example. I lived in the city of Tallahassee for half of my adult life. I commuted 7 miles each way to work every day. And I used to see people speeding away from the first intersection from the neighborhood, and 7 miles later, they may be 3 cars ahead of me. So I started tracking my effective travel speed over 1,500 miles, and I'm on a road that averaged 35 to 30 miles an hour from the posted speed limit. My actual speed was 19 miles an hour because of all the lost time at traffic signals. So the more development you have, the more congestion, the wider the roads get, the longer the signal cycles end up being. So that's what goes with work and development. And it's not something you can do one thing and eliminate the other negative consequences of. So the goal of Vision Zero is to create more complete streets so that people can get their needs met without having to drive a car to do something.
And if I may, I'll jump in too. So based on the results of national research, there has been a number of different publications that have come out that suggest that planning for a more diverse multimodal transportation system has been correlated with being closer to achieving Vision Zero results. And what I'm saying is, when you have a robust transit system, when you have a robust bicycle and pedestrian system, that people have options to use different modes. Those have been successful in not only increasing the awareness of other roadway users, but even with transit, the American Public Transit Association found that having this transit use was contributing to the decrease in deadly and severe injuries and assisting with the Vision Zero goal. So I think that along with any development that happens, we need to ensure that we are appropriately considering multimodal mobility along with that. And in doing so, we can better manage the influx of development. But development will also be something that your planning department and Broward County planners will have to address as we move forward with the land use comprehensive plan, your own land development codes. Those are the ways that you can help shape your city and shape what your city looks like.
All right, that's great. And we certainly will make sure that our planning director is fully engaged in the Vision Zero program, and I believe she's watching tonight.
I'll give you one brief example from a state and a city standpoint. From a land development pattern standpoint, the best thing that local governments can do, and the one thing it requires is political will, is requiring developments to connect to each other. I have a slide that I use that shows 2 homes that are 60 feet apart, but it's a 7-mile drive from front door to front door. And so requiring these developments, adjacent businesses to develop, reduces trips entering into the roadway system, which reduces crashes as well.
Okay, great. And I'm sure you all see the question on the screen. So after this question, I'll address you, Doris. So either Billy or Josette, if you want to chime in on this question by Yuli Quigon, hope I got that right. Has any city, after starting Vision Zero, either achieved the goal or achieved a significant reduction in crashes or injuries?
We work with a lot of Vision Zero cities out west, like San Francisco, and most of these cities that have stayed engaged, it's 20 and 30% reductions of fatalities and serious injuries. You just said maybe some other examples.
Yes, we've seen for the cities that were early adopters, they've seen significant gains in terms of reducing deadly and serious injury crashes. I will say though that this is not something that will happen overnight. It will take time, and generally, when you do a traffic crash analysis, you take 5 years of data. 3 to 5 years of data at minimum, because you really can't see the patterns until you start stacking the years on top of each other. So generally speaking, when you do an analysis for reduction, you'll take a 5-year average and then compare that to the year that you have just passed, just to measure where your progress is. But it is ongoing. It's not something that we would expect to happen immediately. While there's many cities that have goals, there was Sweden who started Vision Zero in the 90s. They started out with goals of 50% reductions, and I believe that they've achieved those, but it takes time. It's possible. It just takes time.
Thanks, Josette. And now to you, Doris. You've heard that crashes are preventable, and that if we have systems in place, so depending on the design of some of these streets and traffic patterns and sidewalks, some of these things can be avoidable. Thinking back on the crash that resulted in your husband's death, how does that make you feel, knowing that if things were structured differently, he may have had a chance to survive? And Josette, afterwards, can you talk about Vision Zero and its equity, focusing on people who are mobility challenged and the African American community and people of color? So Doris, unmute.
Got it. Of course, I had a lot of feelings right after my husband was killed, because I was bombarded with news media and so forth and phone calls, and it's very hard to process your grief that way. And so then a couple years later, because he was killed in 2014, when I simply said to myself, okay, my husband died, an Army veteran, crossing Commercial Boulevard, trying to get to the VA clinic so he could go and volunteer and help others. So the story doesn't stop there. One thing that jolted me was I read a sort of tribute that someone made, but it bothered me when it said a sad ending to the story and, And I'm thinking, no, that's not the ending of the story. That's not the end of the narrative. And I think what we do often is accept the narratives that others write for us. We're sharing the roadways together. Yes, if certain things had been in place, perhaps my husband would still be alive. If there had been better lighting, if the bus stop had been better placed, if there had been a crosswalk that was put there for the benefit really of veterans who would be crossing to the VA clinic. So all of those ifs, but here we are today. And Vision Zero, I think, is so that more people in the future don't have to say those what ifs. And the one thing that struck me as far as Vision Zero, and someone saying, well, do we need it in a community, or do we need it in this size or that size? All right, so what if we said Vision One, and your husband is that one, or your mother or your son is that one? So Vision Zero is the only way to go about it. And what we do in the foundation is pair even with youths to get them to make a commitment to pedestrian safety, to pair up with the mobility impaired senior and says, yes, I'll help you. And yes, I'll help get the word out. And if you can see, we have this 7-day companionship journal. And they just do the walking, they help with activities, they do all of that, and just tell a little bit about their journey. And someone I saw in the chat asked, what can schools do? We would love for the schools to pick this up. We would love to pair with any organization that helps seniors and youth, so that we do help spread the Vision Zero is doable, it's real, and we need to all just get on board with it.
Thanks, Doris. And Josette, you heard Doris talk about lighting, crosswalk, bus stop, and pedestrian safety. So when Vision Zero talks about systems, I'm assuming they're talking about all these things that move people about that need to be structured in a way to prevent traffic incidents or crashes, let me say.
Yes. So Doris brought up a lot of really great points. Lighting is a big component. I know that for myself at the city of Fort Lauderdale, lighting was a big issue for us, because when we did our analysis of the deadly and serious injury crashes, what we found was the majority of our deadly crashes and serious injuries were occurring at night. And so lighting became one of the priorities that we had. We started doing lighting analyses, trying to figure out where on the high injury network that we thought that lighting would be able to increase the safety for all users. And so I ended up calling the city of Bellevue, which is another city that is a mid-sized city that you could probably reach out to. They did a lighting study, and they actually did implementations for lighting, and they saw great results. So I would definitely say that lighting is a big component that can be addressed, and it might be addressed more easily. Other components, so like, for example, the city of Portland, they emphasized pedestrian crossings as one of their major initiatives, their strategies that they wanted to, because they wanted to move people safely across the street. And so when you're thinking about equity and community of concerns, and we know that communities of color, low income, low vehicle household, these are the groups that are dying disproportionately on our streets. These are the groups that are being seriously injured. And we need to be able to better accommodate these folks. We need to start thinking about, well, where can we strategically place these crosswalks so that it benefits the community? Is this a community that uses transit? Is there transit infrastructure here that we need to better move people to? And enhance that pedestrian connectivity. And it's not just about picking a location for a crosswalk. It's what treatments are you going to use to make that crosswalk safe? Are we looking at a pedestrian signal? Is this going to stop traffic? Is it going to be mid-block? There's a lot to think about. And thinking about, is it going to be a high visibility crosswalk? Is it going to have that striping in there that really draws your eye? And this is something that you would want to do in schools. You could also do raised crosswalks on appropriate roadways. And the raised crosswalks would elevate a child 3 inches and hopefully increase the visibility of that child crossing the street. There are tons of different strategies that planners and engineers are employing nationally. And one of the things that I think is really great about New York City's Vision Zero program is that they've been able to build the capacity, they have the capacity to do pilot projects and really test what the design of those intersections or those crossings are going to look like with temporary materials. And then they evaluate it and say, hey, this is something that we can benefit from. Let's make it permanent. And it's things like that that are going to really move the bar, and learning from our other cities and see what's been successful in their communities. New York City is nothing like any city in Broward County. We're not going to be New York City, but we can be like a Bellevue, or we can be like another city that is smaller in size, that is doing exceptionally great work. And the beauty of all this is that there are so many cities coming online in the United States that are closer to our size cities that we can call and talk to and have a conversation with and see what's been working for them and see if that works in our community. So certainly equity is going to be a big part of this conversation. Like I said, you'll need to go out to your communities, ask them, what are the needs that you really have? Is it accessing transit? Do we need to cross these big roads? What can we do? And it's going to be a lot of coordination with some of the roadway jurisdiction owners like FDOT or the county. And it's going to take time and coordination. And, there's strategies such as road safety audits that you can request. And those could produce results that you're looking for. So there's a lot that can be done. I'm optimistic, and I think you all should be too.
Well, that sounds great. I think that's a great idea to have a a road safety audit. Another question that I guess would be for you, Josette, since this is local. What suggestions are there as to how can the intersection of the Woodlands Boulevard and Commercial Boulevard be made safer?
So I'm not familiar with the particular intersection, but I'd be happy to take a look at it, and we can have our Complete Streets team take a look at it and make some suggestions to report back to you, if that's beneficial to you. And just so that you know, Broward County has a Complete Streets team. It's multidisciplinary, and it's an internal group, and we meet quarterly to discuss different projects. And, you know, the Broward MPO has been a great partner to us. FDOT has been a great partner to us, and all the municipalities really, you know, coming in and doing a presentation and, you know, getting our feedback is something that is open to all municipalities, and it really enhances the process. So I would encourage you all, when you come to a project that you're doing, to, especially if it's on a county facility, to talk to the Complete Streets coordinator, and let's see what we can do with getting you a presentation in front of the Complete Streets team and talk it out to see how we can work together.
Okay.
And just to follow up with Josette, Secretary Kibo, who's been the secretary for 2 years, has made safety one of his vital few, which is three different areas of focus. And as a result, the DOT has really elevated their efforts to focus more on improving safety. So they're putting in place a speed management program. They're including more. We're including raised crosswalks into their standards now, which helps to, like Josette mentioned, not just elevates a person, but it also forces the drivers to slow down to a speed that reduces the potential for injuries, and it also increases yielding behavior. We're incorporating leading pedestrian intervals. So, for example, with a woman that was just asking, allowing the pedestrian to get started before the signal changes, so that they're well out into the street before the car starts. There are things that can be done, reducing crossing distances. There are a lot of tools available, as you mentioned, that can be implemented to help to address these concerns, and even modifying signal timing to help manage speed to a corner. All those things are things that DOT is willing and committed to doing differently than the practice.
Josette, do you know if we have that technology here in Broward County or in Fort Lauderdale in terms of the traffic signals?
We should. You know, there's been opportunities, and this has been implemented in Fort Lauderdale. Is there's signalization called lead pedestrian interval, and when you have an intersection that has high pedestrian activity, even high bicyclist activity, you can put in a lead pedestrian interval phase that will give that pedestrian or that group of pedestrians a head start at the intersection. And basically what it does is it turns all the lights to red and allows the pedestrian to start crossing the road before anybody can move. That's certainly one of the strategies. There's also protected intersections. Those also provide safety elements to pedestrians and bicyclists. And actually, there's a ton of different intersection designs out there that the Institute of Traffic Engineers has, you know, published, and many engineers have discussed. But there are new intersection designs that are a possibility of increasing safety. So it's not just your traditional four-legged intersection. There's opportunities to look at intersection design beyond what we traditionally see. But a protected intersection is one of those concepts. And it's especially effective for areas that have high pedestrian activity and bicyclist activity.
Okay. One treatment that you may be familiar with is when if you don't have a protected left turn, where you have a green arrow and you just have a green hollow. A good example of which is switching out those signal heads so that you have the protected left, because a lot of times pedestrians are hit drivers turning left on that green ball, because there's no traffic coming that's going to conflict with them, but the pedestrians typically are in the crosswalk in the ped phase. And so putting that protected left feature in restricts drivers from taking lefts from those pads in the crosswalk. That's another example of the treatment to help improve that condition that she mentioned.
Okay, a question from Michael Arthur. Can you discuss the improvements or statistics in Fort Lauderdale over the last 5 years?
I would love to. I haven't been with the city for at least 2 years now, so I'm not well versed in their statistics, but you can contact their transportation and mobility department to get updated statistics.
Okay. Is that journal online? Asked by Jose Spina.
That is for me. It is not online, Jose. I'm going to make it available. Commissioner, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm going to make it available through Commissioner Gelin's office.
Fine, that's
and
fine.
So you can contact his office for that.
Okay. Then there was another question asked. Well, Jose Ramos said that he's lived in Michigan his whole life until 7 years ago. And then since he's been here, he's had 7 crashes where people ran into him. Do we know about the traffic safety standards in Michigan as it compares to Florida? I know it's a big state. No.
I do not, but I would, if I had to guess, it could be related to distracted driving.
Okay.
And the other thing, it depends on how urban the place was who lived in Michigan. If you lived in a dense urban area of Michigan, then you're going to have lower speeds, less potential for conflicts. You're going to have basically the whole way the street designs. It's like when I lived in Boston. It's a very different culture up there, and it's so much more urban, and people use transit much more heavily. So there's a lot of factors that can come into play. And most of Florida grew up after World War II when sprawl was pervasive, and a lot of money was put over to buying roads and just continuously. Those things are changing.
Jose has a comment here that says we have to keep in mind if we increase homes, you might see an increase and not a decrease. And I guess he's referring to traffic crashes or fatalities. Are there any statistics that demonstrate that if you have 300 or 400 homes, that equals into an approximately X number of cars, which may lead to X number of traffic crashes?
Well, you will, what he's referring to as trip generation, but again, it depends on the land patterns. So I would say you can't tie that directly to crashes. If you develop a project like the Baldwin Park in Orlando, which has low speed streets, doesn't have any signals, that has a lot of connectivity, there's 32 connections to the adjacent street network, there's probably almost no crashes, and certainly no severe crashes in Baldwin Park. You compare that with comparable suburban sprawl development patterns that only have 1 or 2 entrances, then yes, you're going to have a different characteristics as a result. And you have higher speed roads.
Okay. And then one last comment. I saw a comment made about there's been more cyclists on the road since COVID, and having gone to some bike shops, they've been selling bikes like crazy. And I've been on my bike myself, and I'm riding my bike on Pine Island Road, and then all of a sudden the bike lane is gone, and I'm like stuck in the middle of the street. Is there more coordination between the cities and the counties to make sure the bike lanes are connected?
Yes, I would say statewide there is more of an emphasis on that. I think it varies across the state depending on how urban the built environment is. I can tell you in Central Florida and now in the Tampa area, there's a big focus on providing facilities that are off system, like side paths where you've got a wide sidewalk on the side of the road. In fact, we implemented a good bit of it that at DOT before I left, so that now they realize that when you have 45 miles an hour and 60,000 cars a day, the bike lanes are not a good solution. You need to get people off the road on the side path.
And to add to that, I actually am the project manager for the Broward County Greenways Mobility Master Plan, which will be advertised in the near future. So you hopefully will have some greenways, which are shared use paths, or additional bicycle pedestrian facilities that will be planned for and hopefully programmed into the surtax later. So, with this said, I'm hoping that with the Greenways Master Plan, we can increase the integration to the bike lanes that are existing on the roadway networks, but also connect neighborhoods to the Greenway system. So you have a bicycle and pedestrian experience that's a low stress experience, and that hopefully can move you safely around Broward County and connect you to transit. So those are some of the goals of the master plan, and we look forward to being able to deliver that in the next year or so.
All right, that sounds good. I want to thank everyone for their time. Josette, Billy, Doris. Doris, do you have any closing comments? Doris gets all the credit. So she gave us this idea. My legislative aide, Deidre Rogers, did the research. She also helped coordinate this meeting. So thank you, Deidre. And Doris, thank you for bringing this idea. And like I said, I brought it to the commission. It was voted unanimously 5-0. So you get all the credit, Doris. Thanks for being an engaged voter. And if you have any closing comments you want to share, Doris?
I would just like to say that my husband posthumously gets the credit.
Yes. Well, thank you for fulfilling his legacy and keeping his legacy alive.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And Josette and Billy, thanks for your time. Josette, can you serve as a consultant to the city of Tamarac?
Hey, Billy and I are happy to assist you in any way that we can. And we encourage you, if you have a staff member that wants to get more involved, to get in touch with us, and that person can be part of our Florida Bicycle Pedestrian Safety Coalition and really get involved and have a network of Vision Zero cities to discuss with.
That sounds great. We have an update at our commission meeting tomorrow night. If you can't make it, I'll make sure I take a section of that clip and send it to you. And we'll definitely get our planning people involved with you, Josette, and Billy, and Doris will certainly keep you in the know.
I'll get some journals to you tomorrow.
Very good, very good. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your engagement and your interest in the Vision Zero program. Thank you to Doris, her husband, and the City Commission for approving this matter. I want to encourage everyone to plan for Saturday, May 22nd, the Bike with Mike event, where we're going to have a mass community bike ride. So bring your family, bring your friends. We're basically going to have a party on our pedals as we take a less than 5 mile bike ride throughout the streets of Tamarac, fully escorted by the Broward Sheriff's Office, and enjoy the city on our bikes, where we can safely distance, wear our masks, and have a good time. The event starts at 7 a.m. with a professional cyclist, Rasan Bahati. So there'll be a 60-mile bike ride throughout the city of Tamarac and surrounding cities. We'll also have a 35-mile bike ride for the amateurs and folks that don't want to travel too fast on their bikes, and then a mass community bike ride at about 11 o'clock a.m. That's when we want you to come in and register. And most importantly, with our partnership with the Broward Sheriff's Office, we're going to give away 50 bicycles and 50 helmets to deserving Tamarac students throughout the city. So you're going to see a lot more information about that in the next few weeks. And I look forward to seeing you there. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you had questions that were not answered, please send them to me, and I'll make sure they get answered by either Broward County staff, Billy, or our City of Tamarac staff. So thanks again for your time, and have a great evening.